Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. First off, thanks for coming to visit my channel. I'd appreciate it if you watch this video. If you'd hit the like button before you leave, that helps me out a great deal. And if you enjoy the content, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and so you have easy access to updates and things when I put out new videos. One of the banes of my existence when I first started doing this was making bezels, and one of the worst parts about making bezels for me was at the beginning I always ended up, when I soldered down the bezel to a back after I made it around the stone and soldered it closed, it ended up with a split bezel on the side that I had to fix in some way. So I had to pretty quickly learn how to fix those, and so today I thought I'd show two different situations that require some fixing and also how to fix them. So in advance of the video, because I knew I needed to have some split bezels in order to fix, I did two different little simple rings like this, and I made sure that the bezel was split on both of them. On this one here, now let's make sure you can see what I'm looking at here. Okay, you can see that the bezel is soldered on the side here, but when I soldered it down, that solder seems to have disappeared. And what usually causes this problem is overheating when you're a beginner. You tend to heat it longer than you need to in order to get the solder joints to flow. And when you're getting this bottom piece soldered on the ring, or on the bezel, the solder that's in this seam here flows down into that bottom seam. So I get a lot of people ask me how to fix this problem because it's pretty common when you're a beginner. So the other situation I see once in a while is where you have a really big split bezel. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this one is too wide to patch with a piece of solder, and so I'll show you a trick to closing those up so you don't have to start over on your bezel. So we'll start with just the plain one, because these are pretty easy to fix. What I usually do is I just hold it horizontal to my soldering pad like that in a third hand, and the trick to doing these, I'm just going to flux it and then lay a little square of solder right there, and then heat the whole thing to where it's almost flowing, and then point right at that spot right there with the torch to bump it up just over the flow point so that it creates a puddle right across that gap there. And if there's not a big crack there, it'll seal that up, and then you can just remove the excess solder. So let's see if we can get that to work. I'm going to be generous with the solder when I do this. The trick is not to keep the heat on there too much longer after you do this. One other consideration is that I always save this process if I have a split bezel like this, which, by the way, after you do this for a long time, it doesn't happen very often anymore. But if you do, you want to save this for the very last step after you've done everything else that you're going to solder prior to setting the stone, so that when you reheat it for some other solder joint, it doesn't just flow down into the base again and create the same problem. So I've got this fluxed. I'm just going to put a big piece of solder on there actually, and then I'm going to heat this. It's going to take a little longer because I'm using this third hand here, which soaks up a lot of heat. But I'm keeping an eye on the color of the metal and the solder on top. As soon as it puddles completely, I'm going to get the heat off. See, and I waited a little bit. I wasn't quick enough, and I still got a little bit of a split there. So let me see if I can throw one more little piece on there. The reason that happened is because I wasn't quick enough. It shouldn't take very long now because it's already pretty hot. I got most of it. Any little bit that I have left, I think I can probably just file down. That's the other thing. If you just have a partial split and it's just a little bit at the top of the bezel, sometimes you can just file it shorter till that's gone. Alright, so we'll throw that one in the pickle for now. And then this other one with the bigger split. So the trick to doing this is solder doesn't like to fill in an empty space like that. So what we'll have to do is stick another piece of silver in there, and An easy way to do it, since you're using bezel and that's about the thickness of the bezel that I use, is just to stick a piece in that way. Okay, so I don't need one quite this long, so I'm going to cut a little bit off of there. Let's see what I'm doing here. I just kind of stuck it in there. I'm going to have it not stick into the inside too much because I'm going to have to remove that excess that's in there. But with a little luck, we should be able to solder on either side of this, and then we'll just take off the excess. So let's see if we can do that. Again, this one, you don't want to keep the heat on there too much longer after the solder flows. I probably don't need to do the other side, but I'm going to just in case, because it probably wicked up that side too. Oops, I missed. So you can see I've soldered it in like that. Hopefully you can see that. And then what I'll do is I'll trim that off and then use the Dremel to clean it up. And then you'll see that there's no more solder joint issue. So I'm going to let that pickle for a bit, and I'll show you the final product after I take it, clean it up with the Dremel and polish it. Okay, so I cleaned it up with a file and the Dremel a little bit. Okay, so this is the one that had the wide split, and I've cleaned it up with the Dremel a little bit, so you can see it from the outside. You absolutely can't tell where it was. To get rid of the inside stuff, the outside you can just file off if you want. The inside, I used a little ball burr with my Dremel. I hope you can see that. And you just grind away the inside there. And then you got a good bezel. So here's the one that had, let's see which one, there's the side. That's the side where it had the crack. You can see it's not existent anymore. You can still see it on the inside a little bit, but I'll go ahead and set the stones on this and show you what they look like when they're done. So I got them polished up. I believe that's the solder joint side on this one. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe this side. But both are successfully repaired. No problem. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed that and found that helpful.